Breaking news tonight. Federal investigators say a sitting Georgia judge ran a cartel-linked fentanyl network with 2.4 tons seized and millions in cash uncovered.
At 11:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, in a federal courthouse in downtown Atlanta, Georgia, Special Agent Marcus Lane of the FBI stood before a sealed grand jury and delivered a statement that would shake the foundation of the Georgia judicial system. "We have evidence," he said, his voice steady but cold, "that a sitting Superior Court judge has operated as the legal architect for the largest fentanyl distribution network ever discovered on the eastern seaboard." The numbers he presented were staggering. 2.4 tons of narcotics seized across 7 counties, 2.1 million fentanyl pills recovered from underground distribution hubs, $47 million in cash and cryptocurrency traced through shell accounts, and 21 law enforcement officers, sheriffs, deputies, border patrol agents, and state troopers arrested in a single coordinated sweep. This was not a case of isolated corruption. This was command-level collusion. And what federal investigators uncovered inside the private chambers of Judge Harlan Vickers would reveal a network so deep, so meticulously constructed, that it had turned entire regions of Georgia into a protected corridor for the CJNG cartel and their fentanyl supply chain. You think you know how corruption works. You're about to see how a courtroom became a cartel fortress. It began at 4:32 a.m. on a cold November morning. The streets of East Atlanta were silent. Fog hung low over cracked asphalt and abandoned storefronts. Neon signs from late-night convenience stores flickered weakly in the dark. But beneath that silence, something massive was moving. FBI, DEA, ICE, Homeland Security Investigations, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, SWAT teams from 3 counties. More than 200 federal agents in black tactical gear coordinated across encrypted channels, moving like shadows toward 12 target locations simultaneously. They hit a mechanic shop on Moreland Avenue first. Flashbangs shattered the pre-dawn stillness. The front gate buckled under a battering ram. Agents poured inside, rifles raised, voices sharp and overlapping. "Federal agents, hands up, get down now." Inside, they found what looked like a legitimate auto repair business. Lifts, tool benches, stacks of tires. But in the back room, behind a false wall triggered by a hydraulic switch hidden beneath a workbench, they found something else. A steel-reinforced chamber, 420 kilograms of pure fentanyl powder, vacuum-sealed bricks stacked floor to ceiling, industrial pill presses capable of producing 50,000 fentanyl pills per hour, precursor chemicals shipped in drums labeled as industrial cleaning solution. This was not a stash house. This was a cartel super lab. One agent radioed back to command, "We're looking at enough fentanyl to kill half the state." Simultaneously, ICE and DEA teams breached a luxury condo tower in Buckhead, 20th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Atlanta skyline. They found 3 CJNG operatives inside, scrambling to wipe laptops and shred documents. Too late. Agents seized encrypted hard drives, burner phones, ledgers written in cartel code, and $3.2 million in cash bundled in vacuum-sealed bags hidden inside a sub-zero freezer. But it was what they found in a hidden safe behind a bathroom mirror that changed everything. A single external drive, labeled in Spanish, Proyecto Escudo, Project Shield. When FBI cyber forensic analysts cracked the encryption 6 hours later, they realized they were not looking at a drug operation. They were looking at a blueprint for state capture. Inside the FBI's Atlanta field office at 10:15 a.m., Special Agent Marcus Lane stood in front of a wall-mounted digital display showing a web of connections so vast it looked like a neural network. Shell corporations, offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Panama, fake nonprofits with names like the Georgia Youth Outreach Foundation and Peachtree Business Development Group, restaurant chains, logistics companies, trucking contractors with routes that crisscrossed I-75, I-85, and I-16. But at the center of it all was a name: Judge Harlan Vickers, Superior Court, Fulton County. A man who had sentenced hundreds of defendants, a man who had overseen drug cases, violent crime cases, organized crime cases, a man whose digital signature appeared in encrypted authorizations tied directly to cartel logistics, shipment schedules, and protection payments. One analyst pointed to a node on the screen. This account, registered under a shell LLC called Meridian Legal Consulting, received wire transfers totaling $11.4 million over 3 years. The funds originated from known CJNG financial couriers in Jalisco, Mexico. They were routed through cryptocurrency mixers, then converted and deposited into U.S. bank accounts controlled by Judge Vickers' brother-in-law. Lane's jaw tightened. What was he authorizing? The analyst pulled up another file. Case dismissals, evidence suppression orders, bail reductions for known cartel members, sentencing delays that allowed defendants to vanish before trial, warrant denials that blocked state investigators from raiding key locations. One case stood out. A DEA task force had identified a fentanyl distribution hub operating out of a warehouse in Clayton County. They had surveillance, they had informants, they had enough evidence for a no-knock raid. But when they submitted the warrant request to Judge Vickers' court, it was denied. Reason cited: insufficient probable cause. 2 weeks later, the warehouse was empty.
Lane looked at his team. He wasn't just protecting them, he was running interference at the judicial level. He turned his courtroom into a shield. Another agent spoke up. It gets worse. We found communications between Vickers and a man named Carlos Mendez, suspected CJNG regional coordinator. They discussed shipment routes, law enforcement patrol schedules, and which officers could be trusted to look the other way. Lane's voice dropped to a whisper. This is not corruption. This is command-level collusion. And they were about to take it all down. At 5:47 a.m. the next morning, inside a Joint Task Force Command Center in downtown Atlanta, a massive digital map covered the entire back wall. Red markers pulsed across the state of Georgia: Atlanta, Savannah, Macon, Augusta, Brunswick, Valdosta, Columbus. Each marker represented a location tied to Project Shield. Special Agent Marcus Lane stood at the front of the room, addressing more than 300 federal agents, state investigators, and SWAT operators. This is Operation Broken Gavel, he said. We are executing simultaneous raids across 19 locations in 7 counties. Our targets include distribution hubs, stash houses, cartel safe houses, and corrupt law enforcement officers who have been on cartel payroll. We have arrest warrants for 34 individuals, including Judge Harlan Vickers. He paused. This network has operated for at least 5 years. It has funneled fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine into communities across the Southeast. It has corrupted judges, sheriff's deputies, state troopers, and court officials, and it has done so with precision and protection that could only come from the inside. He looked around the room. Today, we dismantle it. At exactly 6 a.m., the operation launched. In Savannah, DEA and ICE teams stormed a riverside warehouse disguised as a seafood processing plant. Inside, they found 680 kilograms of cocaine hidden inside frozen fish crates, 340,000 fentanyl pills stored in vacuum-sealed compartments beneath the floor, and $9 million in cash stacked in industrial freezers. In Macon, SWAT teams breached a residential compound protected by reinforced gates and surveillance cameras. They arrested 4 CJNG operatives and recovered 12 AR-15 rifles, 2 AK-47s,
body armor, and a server farm used to coordinate encrypted communications across the network.
In Clayton County, FBI agents raided the home of a senior sheriff's deputy named Lieutenant Roy Hastings. Inside his garage, hidden beneath a false floor panel, they found $1.8 million in cash, cartel ledgers documenting protection payments, and text messages showing he had been paid $15,000 per month to alert the cartel whenever federal raids were being planned. He was arrested in his driveway, still in his bathrobe. In Brunswick, a convoy of cartel vehicles was intercepted on Highway 17. ICE agents, supported by Georgia State Patrol, forced 3 trucks off the road. Inside, they found 290 kilograms of methamphetamine, 180 kilograms of heroin, and falsified shipping manifests that listed the cargo as agricultural equipment. The drivers were armed. They did not resist. By noon, the seizures were staggering: 2.4 tons of narcotics, 2.1 million fentanyl pills, 87 firearms, $53 million in cash and assets, 19 vehicles, and 34 arrests. But the most important arrest happened at 7:22 a.m. inside the private chambers of Judge Harlan Vickers. FBI agents entered the Fulton County Courthouse with a federal arrest warrant signed by a U.S. District Court judge. They walked past security, past clerks, past bailiffs who did not know what was about to happen. They knocked on the heavy oak door of Judge Vickers' chambers. He opened it himself. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a tailored suit and wire-rimmed glasses, he looked like the model of judicial authority. Special Agent Marcus Lane stepped forward. "Judge Harlan Vickers, you are under arrest for conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, racketeering, money laundering, obstruction of justice, and aiding a criminal enterprise under the RICO Act." Vickers did not resist. He did not speak. He simply extended his wrists, and agents cuffed him in his own chambers. Inside his office, investigators found encrypted tablets, burner phones, and a leather-bound ledger hidden inside a locked desk drawer. The ledger contained names: sheriff's deputies, state troopers, border patrol agents, court clerks, prosecutors. Each name had a number next to it. Payment amounts, some as low as $5,000 per month, others as high as $40,000. One entry caught Marcus Lane's attention. Captain Vincent Drury, $32,000 per month, patrol grid modifications, convoy clearance, evidence disposal.
Captain Drury was the head of the Regional Drug Task Force. He had been on the cartel payroll for 4 years. At 2:34 p.m. that same day, inside a DEA evidence processing facility in Atlanta, investigators began analyzing the seized servers and hard drives. What they found was a shadow system. The cartel had not just bribed officers, they had infiltrated the infrastructure. Court databases had been accessed using stolen credentials. Case files had been altered. Evidence logs had been edited to remove references to cartel suspects. Dispatch schedules had been modified so that certain patrol routes were always understaffed when shipments moved through. One analyst pulled up a map overlay. It showed official state patrol routes for the past 3 years. Then it showed cartel convoy movement. The two never overlapped. They knew exactly where every officer would be, every night, down to the minute, the analyst said. Marcus Lane leaned over the screen because someone on the inside was feeding them real-time data. They cross-referenced dispatch logs with financial records from the seized ledger. 18 officers had received payments. 7 were deputies in rural counties. 4 were state troopers. 3 were court officials. 2 were ICE agents stationed near the border. 1 was a federal prosecutor. 1 was a sitting judge. The system had been compromised at every level.
One senior DEA supervisor, a man named Thomas Calloway, put it bluntly during a debriefing. "We were not fighting a cartel. We were fighting a second police force." As investigators dug deeper, the scale of the operation became clear. This was not just about Georgia.
Using the seized financial data and communication logs, federal analysts traced the network across state lines. The operation connected to Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama. The CJNG cartel and their fentanyl suppliers had used Georgia as a central distribution hub. From Atlanta, drugs were shipped north along I-85 to Charlotte and Virginia, south along I-75 to Florida, west along I-20 to Alabama and Mississippi. Trucking companies with legitimate DOT registrations were used as cover. Shipping manifests were falsified. Weigh stations were bypassed using pre-clearance codes provided by corrupt officials. One logistics company, registered under the name Southeastern Freight Solutions, had moved an estimated 4.2 tons of narcotics over 2 years without a single inspection. Why? Because every time a convoy was scheduled to pass through a weigh station, the station was temporarily closed for maintenance. The closures were authorized by a state transportation official who had received $220,000 in bribes. He was arrested at his home in Marietta. But the most disturbing discovery came from a file buried deep in Judge Vickers' encrypted drive. It was labeled Phase 2. The plan was not to maintain the network, it was to expand it. The file outlined a strategy to place cartel-connected individuals into additional judgeships, district attorney positions, and sheriff's offices across the Southeast over the next decade. It described recruiting young law students and offering them financial support in exchange for future loyalty. It detailed strategies for funding political campaigns using shell packs and dark money groups. It even included talking points for how these candidates should position themselves as tough on crime. One line stood out: "Control is not built through violence, it is built through legitimacy." Marcus Lane read it twice. Then he closed the file and walked out of the room. On the evening of the arrests, Marcus Lane stood outside the FBI field office in Atlanta and spoke to a small group of reporters. His words were careful, measured, but the weight behind them was unmistakable. Today, federal law enforcement dismantled one of the most sophisticated criminal networks ever discovered in the state of Georgia. This network was not operating in the shadows. It was operating inside our courtrooms, our police stations, our legal system. It was protected by individuals who swore an oath to uphold the law. He paused. That protection is over. Behind the scenes, the work continued. Prosecutors began building cases, grand juries were convened, asset forfeiture proceedings were initiated. Internal affairs investigations were launched across multiple agencies. Judge Harlan Vickers was charged with 47 federal counts. He faced life in prison. The 21 law enforcement officers arrested faced charges ranging from bribery and obstruction to conspiracy to distribute controlled substances. Their badges were stripped. Their careers were over. But the damage they had done would take years to repair. In the weeks that followed, the true human cost of the network became visible. Emergency rooms across Georgia had seen a 340% increase in fentanyl overdoses over the past 3 years. Families had been destroyed. Teenagers had died in high school parking lots. Parents had buried children. One mother in Savannah, a woman named Linda Reardon, spoke at a town hall meeting. Her son had been 19 years old. He had taken what he thought was a prescription painkiller at a party. It was a counterfeit pill, pressed with fentanyl. He died in his friend's basement. "They told me it was an epidemic," she said, her voice shaking. "But it wasn't an epidemic. It was a business, and the people we trusted to stop it were the ones protecting it." Her words echoed across the state.
Operation Broken Gavel was the largest judicial corruption case in Georgia's history. But it was not the end. It was a warning, because what happened in Georgia is happening in other states, in other counties, in other courtrooms. Power does not always need violence. Sometimes all it needs is silence and ambition.